Hello. QPEN, 16th of June 2025. Many of you would remember Walter Cronkite, a very famous American journalist who was trusted by the American public simply because he tried to be non-political and just say things as he saw it. Well, I'm no Walter Cronkite, but I simply want to say things as I see it, and things that are newsworthy that often we don't hear about in Australia and also some other countries, because people are subservient to the people that employ them, and they merely repeat what they're told to say. Well, apart from following the rules of YouTube and Google, I don't have any masters. So the first thing is keep a little Gazan scorecard, and the scorecard for Gazans killed at the moment is 55,104 killed and 127,394 that have been injured. And this is the figures from the October the 7th until the 11th of June. So I'll say no more than that about Gaza, because I'm sure many people feel the same way as I do, and there's certainly enough news reporting on it around the world, and at last people are starting to take a stand, and I'm certainly proud of Australia that they're doing something and not going with the crowd and not going with the USA. Something that I'm quite amazed about, and not many Australians that I've spoken to are even aware of it, but understanding that one sparrow doesn't make a summer, and if one person predicts something that's going to happen, well, that's no big deal. People are predicting things all the time, but when you have 4 and 5 world famous people who are predicting really disastrous situations in the specific area, very much in the Indonesian, Japan, Taiwan area, but also over in the United States. And it would appear that they all agree that it will be in July that it happens, and it's all around that Pacific Rim of Fire, that volcanic area that literally encompasses very much of the Pacific Ocean. Australia is not included in that, New Zealand is. And some have given dates, we'll go into that later, but certainly I would be thinking very seriously about travel to Indonesia, Japan, coast of China, Taiwan, over in the Pacific, in San Francisco, because to have 5 people predict this, that makes it fairly serious, and they're virtually saying the same thing. And it would appear that it could be undersea explosions or volcanoes going off, which can create a vast tsunami, more than that's been seen before. So I'd be careful about my travel arrangements for the month of July in that area. Donald Trump had his victory parade, his birthday parade, but in the background someone had actually put in the music Fortunate Son, which was put out by an English band, and so that's if you know Fortunate Son, well, I won't go into it any further, but it's certainly referring to people who are wealthy and whose children don't go to war. And if we move over to the UK, again, something I haven't heard in Australia, but it is major, major news for the people in the UK, because Parliament had tried to rush through a bill that if people who protested, specifically in Northern Ireland, against the government's immigration program, they could be jailed for 10 years. Well, some people may agree with that, but there is a rape gang with Asian Indian background, and they only got 6 years. So many of the English feel there's a two-tiered system of justice, and they're not very happy about it at all. Luckily, the Supreme Court of Britain said that what Keir Starmer was trying to introduce, Keir Starmer, was against the law, and so the bill failed. Part of the background of this is that England has lost its borders, has lost control of its borders, and something like a week ago, there was 1,200 illegal migrants crossed the Channel on one day. Well, fair enough, you might say. But what the English are upset about is they're having problems finding accommodation, and with high rents, and yet these migrants are housed in hotels and hostels at the taxpayer's expense. So one can understand the British, many of the British becoming very upset and protesting about this. Back here in Australia, there's quite a ruckus regarding the AUKUS contract, which is only going to get worse. Now, a lot of Australians are not happy about the AUKUS deal or non-deal, simply because that the order of 3 to 5 Virginia-class nuclear submarines, which is scheduled for 30 years' time, but, and this is a very big but if the Americans, the USA, has not completed its quota that it deems necessary for its own defence, then Australia misses out on the submarines. What replaces the submarines, I have no idea. Obviously, Mr. Morrison, Prime Minister Morrison, who organised this, didn't read Donald Trump's Art of the Deal, because this was really no deal at all. So I feel, and with the mistrust that is happening with the present USA government, that eventually this deal just simply won't go through. It simply does not pass what we call the pub test in Australia. With Israel's preemptive strike on Iran, after, in a week's time, the USA was supposed to be continuing on with their talks about Iran not having nuclear weapons. Suddenly there's this preemptive strike by Israel upon Iran. Now, both Trump and Rubio said they had nothing to do with it, but then Netanyahu came down and said quite the opposite. He said it came out publicly that the USA was in on this preemptive strike all along, and in fact they supplied intelligence. They supplied intelligence for Israel. The USA has admitted that this is in fact the case. Now, Iran is not like Vietnam or Afghanistan. If the USA does go to war against Iran, it's a different proposition whatsoever to attacking poor countries like Vietnam and Afghanistan and even Iraq. Mind you, each of these wars they lost. Iran has been preparing for such a conflict for many years, and they can retaliate with disastrous results for all the nations involved: USA, Israel, Iran. It's a really no-win situation. But I'd like to just remind the USA and Americans, the reality is that they have not won a war since the Second World War. The Korean War, which went on for 3 years, and cost many, many, many lives. I'll just check the 58,220 United States soldiers killed. That ended up as a truce. There's still been no peace agreement signed. The USA then went to war against Vietnam. This is the richest country going to war against one of the poorest countries over a 12-year period. The Americans lost 58,220 soldiers in that conflict and didn't win. Then there was Afghanistan. The Americans and their allies went to war in Afghanistan, which went for 20 years until President Trump, in his previous term, made a deal with the Taliban. He didn't advise his allies or anybody else, including the Afghan government, that he was doing the deal. And he said, and when the Biden administration took over, they continued on with that deal, which was made by the previous government, and therefore felt honoured to do it. And after 20 years, Afghanistan was lost, and the numbers of, let me check the numbers for that, was 2,461 Americans that had died. The Iraq War, which George Bush commenced with a preemptive strike, aided and abetted by the UK, England, and also John Howard in Australia. There was no act of parliament. John Howard simply just went to war. And that war is still ongoing. Iraqis, I have no idea, I don't know if anybody does, just how many people have died in the wars that have continued after their preemptive strike, and is still ongoing. It's worth considering that the USA had been involved in four wars that they didn't win, with the loss of American soldiers of 101,764 American lives lost, with nothing to show for it. The one good thing about that is the Korean War, after the truce, Korea has become a highly successful democratic country and really a beacon in Asia to what can be accomplished after your country has been completely devastated in that 3 years. And it's worth remembering that in the Korean War, over a 3-year period, something like 3 to 4 million people died. Something like 1/10 of the population. I myself, yours truly, would hardly be labelled a pacifist, having been in 3 wars: Korean War, Indonesian confrontation, and the Vietnam War. I I've set down my experiences in a book, 3 Wars a Soldier, and let me say, it's what some people have called that a man's book. It was drawn to my attention. It's not an emotional tale, it's not a tearjerker, it just simply tells things as they were and as they happened. Here in Australia, we see very little news, if any at all, about that amazing continent called Africa, which is re-emerging like a phoenix from a long, deep colonial sleep, or the after effects of colonialism. Various countries over there have simply torn up their contracts with companies that were exploiting them, that weren't acting as partners with them as it was promised. And there's certainly Burkina Faso, Mali and Niger. And these 3 countries, it looks as though they may join because they have a common purpose in developing Africa for their own people, and they may even become one nation. Much of this occurred after President Ibrahim Traore, who was probably the youngest president in the world. He's 37 years old at the moment. But he has done remarkable things for Burkina Faso. That's good news. Africa, if it once again becomes an exciting place to live, then Africans will stay in Africa and participate and enjoy their successes without needing to leave and go overseas to Europe or anywhere else. Another amazing news coming out of Africa is, if it's real, and it apparently is, which is absolutely mind-boggling, yet I haven't spoken to Australia within my circle that is even aware of what's going on. And that's concerning this young inventor, remarkable guy, a Zimbabwean, was born in Zimbabwe and self-educated. But this young guy has invented cars, a demonstration car, motorbike, that he uses radio frequencies to power the car, motorbike. It's a power source, and it requires no external input. Not electrical, not petrol, and in fact what the car does, it actually generates energy and electricity which is stored, and that car, when it arrives back home, the electricity stored can be used to power the house.
His vehicle, powered by what he describes as a revolutionary energy generation system, is said to require no external input to indicating its potential not as a niche curiosity, but as a disruptive force capable of shaking the foundation of trillion-dollar industries. Elon Musk has brought global attention to Chikumbutso's achievement.
Musk has checked it out and approved it or endorsed it, but with all the disinformation that is about today, one can't really verify whether Musk said that or not. We are aware that Nikola Tesla did the same. He said that power was all around us in radio frequencies, and he also had experiments that harnessed that power. And it appears that our young inventor, Maxwell Chimamutsu, has done the same in Harare. Maxwell needs to tread very, very carefully, because when he went to the United States and he was seeking patents and things like that with his partner, they were poisoned. His partner died, but he's back in Africa. This is wonderful news, not just for Africa, but for the entire world. If, and in fact, he has successfully used radio waves to power a vehicle. Zionism is the catchword of the day. There are those who are for Zionism, and there are a lot of people who are against it. But just exactly what is it? Well, without going into a long diatribe, it's the old name for Jerusalem in the Bible, and because it's in the Bible, Zionism is simply not an Israeli thing. In fact, there's many Israelis who are against it, because a lot of Jews simply, they believe they just follow the Torah and are not into Zionism at all. But the Zionism, actually, there's verses in the Bible, and because of it being in the Bible, there are not just Jews, but there are also Christians of all denominations who follow the Bible, who also believe in Zionism and give it its support. There are a few verses from the Bible which I've tracked down or looked up, and I'll put them here for you, but just let me read them. 2 Samuel 5:7 states, "Nevertheless, David captured the fortress of Zion, which is the city of David." This verse describes David's conquest of Jerusalem, which he then renamed the city of David. You've got Psalm 9:11, which reads, "Sing praises to the Lord who dwells in Zion." Then we have Zechariah 8:2, New King James Version, "Jerusalem shall be called the city of truth, the mountain of the Lord of hosts, the holy mountain." So it would appear that God was the first Zionist, something that I find remarkable. It is said that armaments is the largest industry in the world today. This is followed by the medical industry, medical research, etc. Medical research into chronic diseases runs into billions, and yet they have not found a cure for heart disease, cancer, diabetes, dementia, autism, obesity, all these modern chronic disorders that literally plague humankind at the moment in most countries. And yet, some information that your friendly local doctor doesn't advise you of, and that most people, or many people, are completely unaware of, is the fact that there are groups of people here today, in the world today, in different countries. Some are the Mossatan, Tsunami in South America. You have the Hadza, the San, and other tribes in Africa. There are a number in the Pacific Islands. Now these groups are termed hunter-gatherers or subsistence farmers, but they are remote and away from Western civilization, from so-called civilization. But these groups, what they have in common, even though they live in different areas and have different dietary intake, they do not have heart disease, cancer, autism, dementia, diabetes, or obesity, good teeth, no hearing aids and no glasses. All the other groups that explorers such as Captain Cook when he came to the islands, none of the people there had those chronic conditions. When they arrived in Australia with the Aborigines, none of those people had those chronic conditions. In the United States of America, with the Indian population, none of those people had our chronic diseases. So, to my mind, rather than spend untold billions upon medical research, which I'm not against, but wouldn't it be worth investigating these people? Because it would appear that prevention is not what you eat, it's what you don't eat. Because these people don't eat grains, that's bread, wheat, barley, rice. They don't have oils, seed oils especially, margarine. They're not available. They simply eat what's available to them in that area, but it's fresh food, fresh veggies, fresh water, with no chemicalisation, no pesticides, no insecticides, no additives, no Roundup. And these people have perfect health. Now, do they get ill? Of course they get ill. They get chills, they get fever, they get bitten by mosquitoes, they have accidents, but generally, if they don't have those particular problems, they simply die of old age. Much more about that in the later segments. But I put that out for your consideration. To wind up for today, I'd like to finish with a joke. This young fellow went to see his local doctor. He said, "Doc," he said, "I've got a real problem." The doctor says, "Well, what is it?" He said, "Look, if I press anywhere," he said, "I press my forehead." He said, "The pain, it's really bad." But he said, "But if I press my shoulder, he said, "The pains, it's excruciating. It's really, really bad." He said, "Doesn't matter where I press. If I press on my neck, here." He said, "The pain, it's really, really bad." He said, "It doesn't matter where I press on my body." He said, "The pain is terrible." He said, what can you advise?" The doctor said, "Well, I'll tell you what your problem is." "Oh," he said, "What is it?" He said, "You've got a broken finger." Bye for now.